A day in the life of a professional artist, you might be thinking, at least one with some sort of internet presence or audience, happens like any other day for them. First, you sit down early in the morning and draw what's called a 10-minute warm-up sketch. It will be fun, dynamic, surprisingly good for the amount of time, and you post it to Instagram, just on your stories, to let the day know you mean business. Next up, you tackle the next installment of a daily challenge you've been working on. The theme is raspberries. And wow, no one has ever created a cooler secret agent helicopter that also uses all the shape language of a raspberry quite like that. You post it on Main, and it gets even more likes than yesterday's drawing of a mango-themed four-wheeler. Now it's 9 a.m., and it's time for you to work on the main piece you were planning on this morning during your 3 hours of meditation. This takes a little longer than the first two pieces you completed today, but you have a fresh cup of coffee, so you make quick work of an interestingly composed, compelling narrative piece. Now at 10 a.m., it's time to work in your sketchbook, which you'll eventually share as part of a sketchbook tour video. So you'll need to be on your game when you create an interesting looking page with cool intersecting shapes, much like the last page. Maybe you'll use some mixed media here and there to accent things ever so lightly. Now it's 10:20, because you were kind of taking your time with the sketchbook, and it's time to work on the super secret project that you haven't told anyone about. But since you've already outputted 3 social media worthy posts for the day, you can do a little NDA work as a treat. After lunch at 10:40, you do some client work, which goes really well. They love everything you do, just like your audience. At 11, you do what's apparently called a cooldown sketch, which, after you initially just post to your story, gets so much engagement you can't help but render it a little more into a real post. Now it's 11:30, and you realized it's been a whole day since you made a really interesting piece of fan art for the show that came out earlier at 10 a.m. You watched the full season while you were working. So, you make a cool poster of all the characters in a really unique style. And now at the late time of 11:45 a.m., you take a small break, raring to go to start on a few more pieces of art this afternoon. As much as it may seem like it, there is not a single artist out there who actually has this kind of output. You might get the impression, though, through seeing an amalgam of multiple people's daily output of their best work online, and that the best is just standard. And maybe that doesn't really matter until you sit down to create, maybe after having not made anything in a few days, and thinking, well, I think I need to make that 10-minute warm-up sketch first, something cool and dynamic and fun. And immediately, you're off track, because that sketch is awful, and it doesn't take 10 minutes. So you forego that and say, well, I should really make a new drawing of my original character, or I really need to be relevant with fan art. And all of a sudden it's 3 in the morning and you haven't done anything quote-unquote worthy of posting, and you feel like a failure. We've talked before about these sort of expectations, but the thing I really want to focus on is practice, because like almost everything, there is a glamorous, inaccurate version of it floating around that I think trips up and discourages artists of all skill levels. Now, if this is you, I don't want to pick on you personally, but I think we all know the person who, in school, had 16 different highlighter colors. Teal means the footnote's important, aquamarine means annotated text, 3 underlines of green, yellow, and pink means intriguing thought, blue means heartwarming, and pretty soon their entire page is highlighted. And maybe it looks beautiful, but what was the point of highlighting? What about the person who creates a beautiful corkboard schedule for themselves, with modular, dynamic, beautifully crafted tasks hung perfectly with cool-looking thumbtacks? Again, what was the point of scheduling? The point of studying was not the final product of a nice-looking studied page. The point of scheduling was not to have a nice-looking schedule. The point of studying was to get the information into your brain. And the point of scheduling was to accomplish things in appointed times. That studied page or corkboard might get some likes on Instagram or Pinterest, more accurately, because they represent, or kind of even brag about, a final product that is incidental to the actual point. Even worse, the amount of effort put into making those things pretty could have detrimental effects on those people's ability to benefit from the studying or the scheduling. The line gets a little bit blurred though when it comes to drawing, because drawing can go either of these directions. Yes, drawing can easily be a final product, as we see all the time. It's an output. But in order to improve and grow, drawing also needs to be an input. And that's why we started talking about this idealized artist's day, because there's a really dangerous pressure for everything you draw to be output. When you're studying text, the goal is to absorb the information, retain it, and understand it, no matter how many highlighters you use. And when practicing art, the goal is to absorb something new and understand it, or re-understand something better. Now, this process looks awful. it's messy. But that doesn't matter at all. Art studies involve interpreting something that you see. Maybe that means looking at reference photos of a creature or plant or vehicle and drawing it realistically, or figuring out the constructed shapes that it's made up of. Maybe it's looking at the way someone else renders their art and trying to replicate it. Maybe you're trying to draw a dozen hands or heads in order to get more comfortable with drawing them. The point of that practice is not what ends up on the page, but the growth and understanding that has happened in your head and your hand. The point is that you got better. You added a little more fuel to your tank, a little more ammo to your belt. You've gotten input for the next time that you output. This means that your studies, sketches, and exercises should be messy, possibly private, and uninhibited by worrying about performing well with them. Take, for example, myself. I was studying ostrich feet this weekend, trying to first replicate their structure from a few different angles, and then simplifying and stylizing them. It didn't look good, especially at first. But if I was worried that I was failing to make a quality piece of output, I might have quit too early to get a quality input. And eventually, I got some decent-looking ostrich feet, which I might include in an upcoming piece of output. And no, I won't show you those sketches because that's the point. I've said before that you need to have a sort of creative junk drawer, things that are possibly aimless, without purpose, and enjoyable, maybe experimental. I think, too, this should be supplemented with regular time devoted to improving yourself that is done for you and not to impress other people. The more that you put yourself under a microscope, the faster you'll get burnt out, the more you'll stagnate, and the more you might worry too much about what other people think to mess up. This, I think, especially happens the more successful that someone is, the more demand there is on their time, and the more difficult it becomes to make this time to input. People have lots of reasons for why they work out, but no one is doing it to create a pile of sweaty shirts on the floor. They want to look better, feel better, live better, or do better. And I think if you're able to treat your craft of drawing the same way an athlete treats their body, you'll have a better balance of what proportion of time you should focus on what. There's hours of training and sprints and nutritional choices that go into a single race or one football game. And if they demanded of themselves to only perform as though there's a game on all the time or a race, something is going to suffer. So make time to input. Input like no one's watching. In case you've missed the last few weeks, we announced some exciting things at the virtual booth earlier this month, but the thing happening soonest is the launch of the new Learn Character Design course on June 30th, completely remade from the ground up. Head over to learncharacterdesign.com for more on that. You can also keep my forge burning over on patreon.com/BagelDenizen and get things like Biko's Backpack at the Biko's Backpack tier. If you like these weekly videos that are made to support you and you want them to continue, you can do that there. And you can keep up with me at BagelDenizen on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun creating.